By all estimations, Glenrio is a ghost town. Make that 2 ghost towns, since it straddles the Texas and New Mexico state line. Founded in 1903 as a railroad town on the old Rock Island line, it has been greeting motorists since 1917 when a branch of the Ozark Trail came through, which was later christened Route 66 in 1926. As motor travel in the U.S. grew, so did Glenrio, with numerous businesses like gas stations, cafes, and motels lining the north side of the boulevard and a railroad depot on the south side. Major improvements were made to Route 66 in the 1950s, and the road going west towards San Juan and Tucumcari was realigned to make it straighter. Everything changed forever in 1973, though, with the opening of I-40. Glenrio has a storied past, from the mobsters frequenting the motels and beer joints in the 30s, to filming parts of The Grapes of Wrath in 1940, and more recently, the animated homage in the 2006 movie Cars, which featured the Glenrio Motel and a rendition of the Art Moderne Little Juarez Cafe. It hustled and bustled, while as a nation we sought a better tomorrow. Today, though, it is all but dead. You can hear the cars, trucks, and people whizzing by on the freeway, an average of 14,000 vehicles a day. But you could lie down on Glenrio's main drag and safely catch a good nap. The only true indication that this is Route 66 is this emblem painted in the middle of the boulevard, letting everyone know that this is indeed the Mother Road. All is silent now, but back in the day, Glenrio boasted many businesses, and since it sat on the state line, it wasn't surprising that one state played off the other. For example, alcoholic beverages were not available on the Texas side, and gas taxes were higher in New Mexico. The result was people filling up their respective tanks on opposite sides of the line. Even during its heyday, though, town was at most a mile long, and that includes the parts in both states. Gas station, post office, diner, motel, another motel and diner, God knows what that was, one more diner, one more gas station. Glenrio was supremely situated in the middle of nowhere. From the east, it was 10 miles to what was once Boise, Texas, and 18 to Grulke, where both had gas stations. To the west, it was 6 miles to the gas station, store, and small motor court in Endy, but travel was not fast in those days, not like on today's freeways. In terms of sheer size, Glenrio was it for quite a few miles. Vega, some 37 miles to the east in Texas, Tucumcari 35 miles to the west, were the nearest large cities, and that, of course, is only relative. I guess you could say that Glenrio had it all. It's hard to believe this was once the site of a deep rock gas station and cafe on the east end of Glenrio. All that's left today are the floors and foundations of the buildings, the gas pump island, and the metal remains of that sign. It took me several trips to Glenrio to even find that sign, much less the remains of the buildings, because they're very well hidden. If you listen carefully, you can hear the traffic going by and see the trucks and cars whizzing by on their way to tomorrow. In spite of the fact that Glenrio is called a ghost town, there are indeed a few residents, not to mention some barking dogs. And there are signs posted throughout the town warning people to stay off the property, at least on the Texas side. This is the Juarez Diner, which was intended to be a knockoff of the Valentine Diner cars popular in the 40s and 50s. What gives this away as being a clever fake is the fact that it was constructed of cement blocks as opposed to the metal Valentine Diner cars. Still, it's a reasonable facsimile and what I wouldn't give to go inside. And right next door are the remains of an old gas station which probably hasn't seen the light of day for a good 40 or 50 years. The car parked in front of it has been there for as long as I can remember. The Coke machine has been sitting out there rusting. Everything is as it was left the last time a gallon of gas was pumped. We're now on the New Mexico side, and this is an old gas station and perhaps a little store. You can rummage around on the inside. There's not a whole lot there. A few pieces of furniture and other artifacts. You can see the pump island and everything quite clearly. Moving here to the east, we see this ramshackle wooden structure on the far west end of the building. This is the original post office. Hard to believe. It looks like it's just waiting for a good wind to come along. And then beside it is the more modern post office, if you will. And inside was also a cafe with very small store. There's a lot of installations and so forth typical of a diner still in there. Booths and chairs, even some display racks for merchandise. You can just have at it, just wander in. On the New Mexico side, there are no signs announcing private property or no trespassing, so you can freely wander around and check out what's inside these buildings. Immediately to the east are the remains of yet another motel, and these rooms are in probably even worse disrepair than the first last motel. I've gone in here many times and found all kinds of plumbing and sinks and bathtubs and things like that laying around. Even found beer cans from the mid-1970s that are laying there as if they were just left from this last weekend's party. Finally, we take a look to the east. You can see the last first and a nice view down the boulevard here through the middle of Glenrio, Texas. This is likely the most iconic of all Glenrio landmarks, the first and last motel in Texas, along with the Longhorn Cafe and the gas station out front. Right now, the building has been ransacked many times. Most of the windows are broken. There's really nothing of value left on the inside. In the last half year, private property and no trespassing signs have been posted, warning people to stay out, although I do not really see any evidence of anyone living in any of the structure behind, which is the motel. I've been through pretty much every square inch of every building in Glenrio more than once, and so I'm happy I did it before the signs went up. I really don't see how any of this could be rehabilitated and repurposed for future use. The roof is in bad shape. The buildings are in bad shape. People have basically trashed the place through the years, and now it's pretty much just sitting here waiting for a tornado or a wrecking ball to take care of the rest of it.
Garth Brooks pondered in song, "If tomorrow never comes," but it came and went for Glenrio. Before the freeway was built, the sun shone brightly on this village. Seasons changed, and so did Glenrio. Transportation, commerce, and us. We live our lives for the moment. The present has no time left. There's only the elusive tomorrow, which we chase lest we miss it. While the sun has set on Glenrio, we can still hear the ghosts of city past. You just have to take the off-ramp to hear them. Be sure to visit my Google map for an interactive experience in which you can see more sights of Glenrio.